Hello there, and welcome to another Starfield video. So we got something different today. So this is a video I've kind of wanted to make for a while, but initially I was kind of unsure whether or not to make it, because it's a lot of just me kind of like giving my opinion on things I'd like to see in the game. Now I've been kind of, I've sat on it for a while, like I said, and I decided, you know what, like might as well just kind of throw my thoughts out there, because there's a lot Starfield gets right, and there's obviously like a lot that Starfield kind of, I don't want to say gets wrong, but it's kind of missing. So yeah, so we're gonna look at five things I'd like to see added to Starfield. Now I will preface that I play on Xbox, and while at some point we will get access to mods, a lot of the stuff I'm mentioning may already exist as mods, or in the future will be kind of probably added as mods, because they're things that I'm not going to claim that I came up with them all on my own. Like, while I did think of them by myself, I wasn't influenced by anybody. They're kind of things that anybody who has like a decent grasp of Bethesda games or stuff like that could easily kind of come to the conclusion themselves. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is ship crew stations. Now, as you see here, I have my nice vessel here, my Corvette that is modified slightly. So the idea behind these crew stations is we know that characters have perks, as you can kind of see with certain things. And the idea with the crew stations, with the ships, is being able to assign certain crew members to specific roles. Now we know that characters have perks, like for instance, if we think of like, let's say for Sam has a perk that increases like your piloting skill, right? We know that when we have him, he kind of increases your piloting skill. But one of the kind of the things with this system is you're kind of limited on who you can kind of bring, like, to give these bonuses. Like, if you want to, basically, it's either you rock Sam or you rock Amelia Earhart. And I don't like the idea of being kind of locked in. So the idea behind the crew stations is they kind of work similar to if you've ever played, like, Fallout 4, for instance, how you have, like, the different kind of workshops and workbenches and, like, different things. So here's an example, right? In my ship here, we have an infirmary. We have a science lab. We obviously, up here, we have the cockpit. And then if we drop down underneath, we have the docking port there. And then if we go up one more level, at the back, we have a living quarters. We have an armory. And we have living quarters. So here's my kind of my idea. So each of these modules or habitats have a crew slot depending on the size of the vessel. So we'll take this for instance, right? So you can assign a crew member to your infirmary, and they basically will fill up the role as doctor. Now, depending on the perks, they mightn't be as effective as an actual, like doctor. Because like in game, there is actually a doctor you can get in your crew, but she doesn't do anything. So, like, let's say, for instance, you could assign Sam to do this role. And in doing so, it would give you passive bonuses and, like, active bonuses. So, passive bonus could be when you're in your ship, you regenerate health slowly. An active bonus, you literally have a doctor. Now, with using Sam, who doesn't have any really proficiency in the medical trait, he would be able to do very basic healing. Like, he could basically bring your health up small amounts, but he couldn't bring it past, let's say, 75%. Whereas if you were to assign a doctor, like there is a doctor in the game who has the perk, basically the aid perk, it would improve upon that, and they could fully heal you, they could fully fix all limbs, wounds, so on and so forth. Now, whereas if we come over here and we look at, like, say, the science lab, yet again, you could assign someone to your science lab, and you can get passive bonuses and, active bonuses with the science lab. So let's say, for instance, you could assign someone here, and much like in Fallout, like, they would produce, like, a resource. You could be like, okay, I would like you to produce me Aurora, or I would like you to produce me chems, or, something along those lines. And obviously, depending on the perks of the character, because there is characters in-game, companions, that have different types of perks. Like, if we take a look at some of the companions I have available. So, for instance, let me look here. We have Lynn, specialized in demolition. So if we were to assign her here, we might get the ability to make, let's say, unique explosive-based, sciencey stuff. Whereas Sarah has botany, which means she could produce plant-based stuff. Now, obviously, we're not going to kind of cover everything, but there is kind of one or two that I really wanted to focus on. So the first one is or the kind of the first one is when it comes to like your kind of your co-pilots and stuff. So all of these cockpits generally have seats for extra crew. So like imagine, let's say for instance, depending on the cockpit, you could have two crew slots. You could have your co-pilot, and then you could have like a slot that you could swap out. So say for instance this one, I can have a co-pilot, and then I could have like a navigator or a weapons officer. And like it is, adding a co-pilot would do something similar to how Sam operates. You know, it would increase your boost speed. It could increase your jump range a little bit. Obviously, if you equip somebody like Sam, you would get more out of it. And then obviously, with the weapons officers and stuff, there's a lot of characters in the game who like directly give you perks and stuff. Like say for instance, Andrea has particle beams, energy weapons, all this sort of stuff. I could assign anyone to be my weapons officer, and it could, for instance, it could increase the damage of my weapons, the cooldown on my weapons. It could make turrets more effective, and then obviously assigning someone who is more specified or more like qualified in the role has more opponents or more bonuses. And then finally, the one that I kind of like want the most from a roleplay point of view. So if you ever land on a planet or you basically dock in anywhere, you'll notice that if you Vasco on the crew, Vasco will patrol the landing bay, or he will wait on the inside of the docking hatch, regardless of where you are. And I'd like the ability to assign crew members to act as a kind of a security team, so it's not just Vasco. Like much like with it, the security team, depending on the class of your vessel and the size of your crew, you could assign up to, let's say, 3 crew members. And not only would those crew members, when you land on a planet, they would patrol said like landing strip to make it secure for you. They would also, if you board enemy ships, they would follow you onto the enemy ships and or stations and basically help you. Now, with this sort of system, when it comes to the kind of the crew stations, Bethesda would probably have to increase the sizes of the ships, because currently you can get a max of I think 10, maybe 11 crew with C-class. If we wanted to make this super effective, Bethesda would probably have to to make it, they would have to increase the A-class max crew to maybe 6, B-class to 12, and C-class maybe to like 16. That way you can, your ship can feel properly alive. It's not just you and whoever you need to squeeze those beam lasers to like a little bit more damage. But anyway, that's the first one. Now we'll jump on to the next one. So the next one we're going to talk about is New Game Plus. So currently New Game Plus in the game, for anyone that isn't aware, when you complete the main quest line of the game, spoilers, you basically get the option to kind of reset your character in a sense. You become this starborn entity and you teleport to a different, you start fresh in a different reality. Now the first New Game Plus is always the same. It's pretty much the exact same layout as the first game. Whereas anything after that, it changes how the game works, like in terms of the storyline slightly, only with the main quest. Everything else is perfect. I mean, or not perfect, but everything else. But the idea with the New Game Plus having a real purpose is I personally think they should add Starborn NPCs throughout all of the different quests, all of the different playthroughs. So be it New Game Plus 1, New Game Plus 5, And these Starborn NPCs could range from companions that give you very powerful NPCs to follow you around, to bosses that would allow you to basically have, a kind of a different thing to fight. Like when you play through the main story of the game, you're kind of at odds with these two Starborn characters, the Hunter and what's the other guy called? He's basically more of a diplomat sort of thing. And while that is cool, it would be a lot more fun if, you were chasing down, kind of like if you think of the Ebony Warrior from Skyrim. Now, I know there is a Starborn vendor in-game, but let's be honest, that vendor kind of sucks. Some of the weapons are good if you're, early game and you don't really farm too much, but you can farm your heart away and get, better stuff. Now, obviously, also with New Game Plus, I'm just looking at, you can see my character stats here. One of the big things of New Game Plus is initially people thought it was going to be like it is, new game. You can restart everything from scratch, and that's not the case. New Game Plus, you should be allowed the option, kind of like if you ever played Mass Effect, when you do a New Game Plus in Mass Effect, you can basically bring extra traits and extra perks with you. So when you do a New Game Plus, you should gain the option to if you want to, completely change your character's traits, their background, their perks, everything if you want to. And if you choose to not do that, regardless of whether you do that, you unlock extra traits. Like, for instance, currently you can have 3 traits by default. You should be able to unlock like an extra base trait. And then depending on the New Game Plus, you should get unique traits tied to your Starborn that you can choose from. So like you could have, maybe you have a trait where your powers come back quicker, or like a gameplay trait where when you're put on one shot, instead of dying, you basically disappear briefly and get teleported, like say like 50 meters away. Like these sort of traits that like are kind of cool, and they add a little bit to the gameplay, and they make you feel like you earned them. Because New Game Plus currently is kind of a bit of a meh. Now, on the topic of the Starborn, this is number 3 we're going to be looking at. So, quantum essences. You see there in the bottom left, I can press X to use a quantum essence, and it increases my Starborn power regeneration speed for 60 seconds. Now, to be honest with you, this is kind of, if you'll excuse my language, this is kind of shit. The powers, at least for me, as much as I'm a big Mass Effect player, I love being able to have spells and stuff. I didn't really use them too much. And in the Discord, when I was chatting to some of the guys and girls, it kind of seems like generally that's the same consensus. So a lot of people will make use of 1 or 2 abilities, but in those situations, you don't really need to worry about the power regen. Like 60 seconds is kind of crap, if it was like a longer, maybe. But my idea is basically overhaul it entirely. So considering they're pretty much a reskin of the Dragon Souls from Skyrim, allow us to do a lot more with them. Like, you should be able to use them as a currency to unlock powerful items that would be game changer, and it would also kind of affect the gameplay loop, because currently, when those Starborn guys land and you fight them, you're kind of like, oh god, here they come again. Do I really want to fight them? I'm going to get nothing out of it. I can't really loot their weapons or armor. But with the overhaul, you would actually see a reason. So for instance, you could use the currency to reroll legendary traits on items. If you wanted, let's say you're like, oh, I love this legendary, but I kind of wish it didn't have this first perk. You could spend a quantum essence, reroll that legendary. Being able to refund allocated perk points would be another big one. Again, that's something Skyrim allowed you to do. You could reset your skill points in a specific tree by using a Dragon Shout. Or even being able to craft extremely powerful consumables. Like you should, much like how I was saying, you could spend it to reroll weapons and stuff. You could also basically kind of have a system where it would spawn these otherworldly objects, and they could be used for specific recipes. And I mean proper game-changing recipes. Ones that kind of it bridges the gap between a power and a buff, a kind of a food buff. Imagine one where you can use you can slot multiple powers and use them in one go, or combat ones like I was saying, kind of with the with the last one, talking about the perks. You could increase certain stats or certain basically give us the ability to craft unique things. Now on to the next one, part 4, which luckily I am here too. A lot of these are you'll have to forgive me. There's not a lot of stuff going on in the background, because generally it's just me talking, but we are here. So this one is something that I see everyone mention, and it's something that needs to happen, is being able to increase our ship limit by allowing us to purchase hangars or landing pads, depending on where we are. So major cities like we are here, they have a lot of extra landing pads. For instance, we've got a landing pad there that a ship is about to land on. That is perfect timing. He's not going to land on that one, he's going to land on this one up here, which if you come up here you can see him. So all these cities have multiple landing pads, and it'd be cool if you could talk to the ship vendor and be like, yo, can I buy a landing pad? And you purchase the landing pad. Let's say it could cost, depending on where it is, let's say you buy it in Hope Tech, or it would be cheaper because it's Hope Tech, Hope Town, or Mars. It could cost you let's say 100k, and it would increase your ship slot by let's say 5. and you could technically purchase all of them at every starport, you know, so you could increase your ship count by like what, like maybe like an extra like 30, 35 ships. Now also the other part when it comes to cities is it'd be really cool if when we did purchase these hangars, we could set which ship appears on them. Let's say for instance, like you're level 80 plus, you've pretty much done most things, and you want to like retire a ship that you've been using for a long time. So you're like, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna set it so that the frontier is always sat here, so that every time I come down New Atlantis in my new ship, I can walk past and see the frontier that carried me through. Or let's say the Star Eagle, or so on and so forth. It just gives us more customization. Now, currently, we also have landing pads in our outposts, which again don't do anything. They should also be able to do anything. Now, the other thing you'll notice I mentioned hangars. Now, in the game world, there is these kind of POIs of like specific hangars, which I'm going to really quickly try and find one. So it took a bit, but I found one. So as you can see here, we've got the abandoned hangar. Now we're going to fast travel through it real quick. So there's two flavors of these sort of hangars. So generally speaking, you've got kind of the larger above ground hangars that exist in game. Think like kind of your typical hangars from like an airport. And then we have the kind of the underground hangars where basically it's like a landing pad that like opens out, and then there's an elevator that takes your ships down underground. Being able to get these, you could go clear them out like with a ship, and then once you clear them out, you get access. So here we have one here, as you can see. And it's not going to open because, yeah. But this is exactly what I mean. Like, they're usually populated by NPCs, usually mercs and stuff. And it's just the ability to basically take one of these over. And not only could you kind of use it as a kind of a base of operation, you also... Oh, this is Crimson Fleet, okay. You also have the ability to basically store ships. Now, obviously, this how you kind of acquire these could be based on like your kind of reputation. So I'm going to exit this ship real quick, so you can see this is a Crimson Fleet version. So you could basically buy the rights to kind of use it off of the Crimson Fleet if you wanted to go that route. Now, if you didn't like the Crimson Fleet, you could go the route of just straight out murking them and stuff. Now, in order for them to Bethesda to do this properly, they would have to kind of implement the hangars a little bit bigger because, yeah, some of these hangars you're not supposed to be able to fit in them. But yeah, it'd just be a cool thing, if you didn't want to kind of live in the mainstream city, you could kind of capture these hangars. And then kind of the last point, and this is kind of going back to what we're looking at, is the idea of capturing POIs in general. So points of interest are kind of like scattered all over the map. So if we quickly look in space, if we select, let me see, is there one here? There's probably not one in this. So yeah, so like we look here, we've got science outposts, civilian outposts, stuff like this. So depending on the kind of the location of them, so I'm going to really quickly go to another one. There's usually two types of kind of POI, like states, almost, if you will. So you've got the ones that are basically under control by specific factions that are friendly usually, like those science one outposts, the fracking outposts, the mining stations, the civilian outposts. Generally speaking, those ones are... Why are you not letting me look at the planet? There we go, perfect. So those ones are generally friendly, and you should, like this industrial atmosphere, you should be able to go to it, and if you could do a hostile takeover, or you could pay the people. And then taking it over, it would kind of act like the settlement system from Fallout 4, where if you remember, certain settlements had unique abilities, like they produced unique things. Like, for instance, if I took over this industrial outpost, I could basically manufacture pieces. But not in the sense of, because obviously with your outposts, you can technically do that, but just imagine on like a far grander scale. Now, obviously, there's other types of outposts. You've got these abandoned ones. And generally, these locations, while quite cool, they kind of just are there to act as a kind of a dungeon for you to... There's a shipping depot there. They're there to kind of... for bounty board missions where you kind of take over them. So it'd be cool if you could go there, you could take it over. Like, for instance, you take over this shipping depot, and it becomes like an upgraded outpost. It's a lot more... there's a lot more stuff to it, and you could assign your crew to it. And with shipping, with this one, let's say, for instance... You literally use it as it is. You become a kind of an Amazon kind of like retail thing. You make passive income like moving pieces like to and from, and then you have a little bit of kind of tweaking, like if you want to kind of go the route of smuggling, you can make a little bit more money. There's also some other ones where we're going to look at real quick if I can find them. See, it's kind of tricky trying to come across some of them. This one here. This one we have a relay station. This one again, it's deserted. It's going to be filled with NPCs. You could go here, and in basically when you, let's say if you took this over, this would act as like it said a relay station. You could assign some crew to it, and it could basically allow you to see all of the system and all of the resources as well as like the neighboring systems, and basically allow you to pinpoint the resource. Now you can use perks to do that, but it's a nice alternative. Now, one of the ones I can't find currently, but there is kind of ship manufacturing kind of points of interest where a bunch of spacers are basically trying to build their own ships and stuff. And what would be cool about them is you could take them over, and then you could have the ability to bring ships to it, and you could dismantle your ships, and each piece that's dismantled off the ship gets permanently added to the shipbuilder in that like outpost. And that alone would be amazing because like a lot of, if you're a shipbuilder like myself, in the Discord where I was talking about it, basically how I don't want to have to go to this place to get these landing gear, this place to get this engine. If I could just literally drag ships, scrap them down, and then I always have them on, on hand if I need some DT engines or some Nova Galactic NG landing gear. But yeah, this could basically reinvigorate the POI system that is currently mainly there for like players who like to either bounty board hop or people who like to explore. Adding this it would add another gameplay element, like I said, where you can take over them, you can make credits, you can do some side gigs, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, that's just 5 things that I'd like to see in the game. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you like this sort of stuff, I can do more. I'm very good at kind of imagining things and just kind of coming up. And like I said, excuse me. Like I said, they're not like, there's nothing revolutionary here. Like, I'm sure some of you guys probably thought of similar concepts or even the same ones because, you've seen it in past games. But yeah, let me know what you guys think and if there's anything you guys would like to see or like to add. Yeah. Look for part 2 in the near future. Probably be a while just because it's going to be like a one-off for a little bit. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this sort of content and check out some of the videos. Bye-bye.